our colleague and friend, Vandana Shiva. So on this special day now, please join me in welcoming her to our special place, Ojai. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Such a beautiful day. Especially beautiful because you are celebrating Mother Earth Day. And I think there should be no other celebration anymore. There should be no celebration of hate and fear. There should be no celebration of the stupidity of spraying poisons, which I'm told is a project designed for your valley, for dealing with one pest, without realizing that every time a pest is targeted, new pests are created and all the beneficial organisms go. We've had a long history, and it is time to turn this Earth Day into a really strong voice for sanity, for love for the planet, for care for our future generations. Because I think love for nature and love for the future is one love. The second reason I'm very happy is, as Willem already mentioned, my son went to a Krishnamurti school. So Krishnamurti schools have a very special place in my heart. I think he turned out to be a wonderful boy because of those years he spent there. Partly because there's no pressure. There's no exam. There's no competition. You are just allowed to be who you are and evolve to your full potential. And that's what education should be. Not drilling you to be a tiny little cog in a machine you have no idea about how it works. Or increasingly being told you don't even fit there. We are in a strange situation of disposability of large numbers. Disposability that says, sorry, the system has to hit the bottom line, and to do that, there's no place for you. There's no place for you as a farmer, there's no place for you as a teacher, there's no place for you as a healer. But there's a third reason I'm happy to be in this space today, because we are sitting under oak trees. And my activism began about 4.5 decades ago for the protection of the earth because of the oak tree of the Himalaya. A little different, but still a beautiful oak. And, you know, the oak trees, like the children of Krishnamurti schools, have their own personalities. Each branch grows in its own way. And that was the problem. Because the entire timber industry wants linear to turn into cubic square feet of timber. And they said the oak is inefficient. But it's the women. They said it's inefficient as a timber. And it's the women who came out in my region of the Himalaya in the 70s and said, these oaks give us water. Because as the leaves fall, they create humus. They create the springs. Every oak forest in the Himalaya has a spring. No pine forest has a spring. And the women were scientific, and they could see the correlation. And so the movement, the beautiful movement that became my teacher and my learning in how to protect the earth, the movement called Chipko, which means to hug. And for 4 decades, in different ways, I've been hugging the earth. Of course, with Chipko, it was about the women coming out, hugging the trees. And something very simple that trees teach us is we depend on them. That all the carbon dioxide we exhale, they turn miraculously through the process of photosynthesis into the oxygen for us to breathe. And that is why in Indian philosophy, we have the beautiful phrase, soham, which if you do yoga, you're taught that. You are, therefore I am. So to the oak tree, you are, therefore we are. And to the seed, because you are, there's life. Now, I wasn't supposed to work on agriculture and food systems. My choice had been to spend my whole lifetime with quantum theory. And I have another connection with the Krishnamurti thinking, which is David Bohm, who wrote the best book from my perspective on quantum physics, but also articulated both the interconnectedness of the world as well as the potential that is lying ready to burst at any point in every being, in every species, in every child, in every culture, in every valley. And it's that potential that is not seen in a mechanistic worldview. I started to look at agriculture in 1984 because we had two disasters in India. The first was the emergence of extremism and terrorism in the state of Punjab, where chemical agriculture had first been applied, under the name of the Green Revolution. Not green, not revolutionary, just chemicals in farming, using a drought to push it on India. And that same year, we had another disaster called the Bhopal disaster, where a pesticide plant owned by Union Carbide leaked, killed 3,000 people immediately, 30,000 since then, and hundreds of thousands. Babies are still being born, maimed and crippled, because the toxins are in the water. And that year I decided I would figure out why was agriculture so violent? Why was agriculture so dependent on toxic chemicals? And I was working for the United Nations University at that time, and did the research and wrote a book called The Violence of the Green Revolution. And learned then that the reason we have these lethal chemicals in our food systems is because they were leftovers from the war. The war industry wanted to continue war by another name, now as agrochemicals. And that same industry then in the 90s tried to control the seed. You were already told about how literally 4 companies now are seeking control on the seed. I happened to be invited to a meeting in 1987 because of my book on the new biotechnologies, and that's where the agrochemical industry said, oh, we now have new tools of genetic engineering, so we will make genetically engineered seeds and crops, and because we've added a new gene, we will pretend. They didn't say we will pretend, I'm saying this is what they were saying. We can now claim to be inventors, and we can collect royalties, and royalty collection from seed will be our future profits. And to force it on the world, we'll write free trade agreements. I mean, Krishnamurti wrote a lot about freedom. It wasn't about the freedom of those who kill life on earth to continue in their destructive project. And they worked out how to impose intellectual property right. The word intellectual property is invented in the last 20 years. Before that, you had patents on machines like this. You had copyright on music or design. You had trademarks. But there was no word called intellectual property. And that's the day I decided I was going to save seeds, because it was, for me, unacceptable that seed should be called an invention of Monsanto. I mean, Monsanto is an invention, but not the seed. Because all corporations are actually constructions. It began with the East India Company, 1600. And it's a way to externalize costs and privatize profits. Unless you're a company like Patagonia, which works on sustainability and ethics. But they're an exception. And the miracle is that in spite of being an exception, they do so well. Which shows that you don't have to be criminals to do business. So I went home and started to save seeds. Didn't know much about seed saving. Turned to anyone who could teach me, wonderful Dr. Risharia, who had saved thousands of Indian rice varieties, the farmers themselves. And today, with just this dream that the seed should not be colonized, the seed should stay free, farmers would be free to have seed, should not be criminalized for saving seeds and exchanging seed. For me, the highest duty we have on earth. And that's why, when anyone joins Navdanya movement, and Navdanya means 9 seeds, but it also means the new gift. And 9 seeds basically is the highest diversity you can get, and then you get to 10, which is 1 and 0. In our high Himalaya, we actually have cropping systems of 12 crops together. And the more diversity you plant, the more output you get. So this idea that we've got to destroy life on earth to have more food is one of the biggest illusions of our times. But it's also the justification of violence. Why are our crops getting more and more pests and diseases? Because they're monocultures, bred on uniformity. You don't have plantations of one crop, and you don't have one variety of that crop, you're never going to get pest attacks because resilience is built into the diverse system. And in diverse systems, there is no place for poisons. There's no place for spraying. So I was reading about the spraying project. And I do support all of you who want to opt out of it, who want to basically tell the poison makers, roll back. Enough is enough. Over these many years, we've created 120 community seed banks where we've reclaimed seed as a commons and not the property of Monsanto. Some of these seed banks are in the cotton areas, which is what Monsanto has monopolized. And as I said, it's all about profits and royalties on a fictitious assumption of being the creator of seed. Something I don't accept, something our movement doesn't accept, and I think something we all should stand up against. Let's not forget that there was a time some people, the cotton plantation owners, thought it was all right to capture Africans and buy and sell them as commodities and property. And it took the abolition movement to say it's wrong. And eventually, the idea of slavery became unacceptable. For me, patents on life and patents on seed are an attempt to enslave all life on earth. And we should work to make sure that we get rid of this 20-year mischief, which has killed 300,000 Indian farmers because of the debt for those royalties, the number of people who are being maimed and with birth defects in Argentina because of the Roundup Ready soya, because it is the chemical companies that are making the GMOs. And the intention is to make more money, selling more chemicals, even though they pretend it is an alternative. It's not an alternative. The BT cotton has created more pests than there were before. It is failing to control the bollworm, for which it was designed. That's why the trade name of the BT cotton is boll guard. It's supposed to guard you from the bollworm. It's not guarding you from the bollworm. The pink bollworm is resistant. And right now, in India, after the huge tragedies of our farmer suicides, the government is taking action, saying you can't charge what you want to on seed. You can't charge what you want to with royalty. And frankly, this promise you had of pest control through genetic engineering isn't working. So this idea of patenting doesn't have any foundation. And our competition commission has issued a notice to Monsanto to say this is a monopoly. If 4 companies control the seed supply of our world and seed is the first link in the food chain, what could be a higher monopoly? And that's why every one of us must become a seed saver. Every one of us. And every one of us must become a gardener and a grower, even if we can't be farmers. Even if we can't be farmers. Because to take care of that seed, to touch the soil, to know that in that work of putting a seed into soil is the answer to the drought, is the answer to climate change, Rick already mentioned. I wrote the book Soil Not Oil because I said, my gosh, the biggest contribution to greenhouse gases is coming from industrial chemical farming. The nitrogen oxides from the synthetic fertilizers, the carbon dioxide from this giant machinery that looks like agriculture has become war. And then methane from factory farms. Every bit of it ruining the earth and our food system. We can get rid of all of those emissions as well as bring back into the soil all the excess carbon in the atmosphere. All we have to do is recognize that life is not linear. Living systems are circular. And in the law of the circular return, there is a law of return. There's a law of gratitude. There's a law of giving back. That giving back is what we are being asked to forget in the name of science. But it's a cooked up science. Because, I have to deal with this every day of my life. I can tell you, the more people talk science, the more they are undoing science. Because the people who've shown us the real work on the neonicotinoids and their damage to bees, on the GMOs and their damage to kidneys and livers, on glyphosate and its impact as a carcinogen, even the WHO has recognized this. Those scientists are the ones hounded by the PR machine of the poison industry. And that's why your actions to stop the spraying are extremely important. To tell the poison industry, we have less violent ways. We have beautiful relationships with the earth which work better. Our work in India has shown that through ecological farming, we can produce 2 times the nourishment India needs. This "we feed the world" argument is so false. In fact, I think North Atlantic is here with some of the books, and the next book that they'll be publishing is Who Really Feeds the World? 10% of the corn and soya is going for food, and even that would stop being eaten if you had labeling. And you didn't have all those attempts like the Dark Act to say, no, you Americans can be part of the largest democracy, but food democracy cannot be your right. Because corporate profits denying you the right to know are more important. And your right to know is the same movement as our movement of the right to save our seeds. Because both are being denied, and both are part of our fundamental freedoms. So we can grow 2 times the food we need by protecting the earth, every bee, every pollinator, every soil organism, all the species. 1/3 of the food is given to us by pollinators. So any chemical that kills pollinators is robbing us of food security, not creating food security. And then our calculations show that for India, $1.2 trillion of damage is done annually to the environment because of chemicals in agriculture. And if we move to ecological farming and regenerative farming that regenerates the seed, the biodiversity, the soil, the water, farmers, farms, community, our health, that system brings farmers tenfold more. And this is not an empty calculation. It's based on the work we do of linking the seed to the table, the cotton seed to the fiber. We work in the area of suicides, and I'm so happy. It's the first year in the area which had the highest BT cotton and the highest number of suicides in India, the acreage is actually coming down. Because now we have seeds of organic cotton, and farmers are practicing organic farming. And because this knowledge needs to be everyone's knowledge, as I said, everyone needs to be a seed saver and a grower. And these basic skills, the places like Oak Grove that teach, some other places that teach. I started a school called the Earth University to teach the skills of caring for the earth and in the process providing better for ourselves, not by trying to snatch every bit and poison with sprays in ignorance of the impact of those poisons, but to love and care for all life on earth in all its rich diversity. And every year from September 15 to October 15th, we do a course on A to Z of agroecology and organic food systems. It literally is A to Z. Everything about the seed, the saving, the conservation, the participatory breeding, the evolutionary breeding that with climate change, you will have to have even more evolution of the plants. I love the phrase that all of you are wearing in Oak Grove, which is something about intelligence, awakening intelligence. Now, in my view, evolution is nothing more than awakening the intelligence of life forms and allowing them to evolve to adapt to heat, to drought, and it's the only way we'll be able to deal with climate change. And while we do that, it's solving the problem of climate change any case and reducing the risks. Everything about soil. More than 20 ways. Beginning with the Vedic times, I mean, I am so surprised to see that modern methods of composting have their roots 5,000 years ago in our old texts. And Albert Howard, who wrote the Agricultural Testament, coming to India, throwing away his spray guns, making the peasant and the pest his teacher. That's what these poison sprayers need to do. Go and learn from the pest how that pest became a pest. Then they will be real scientists. And so I hope some of you will travel to India. I know the seniors from the school travel to the Krishnamurti schools. I hope every one of you will become the solution. Because we have such a dramatic choice right now. A system that pretends to feed the world has destroyed 75% of the planet. Only gives 30% of the food. If it expands to 40 to 45%, it'll leave us with a dead planet. An uninhabitable planet. That is not an option. It's not an ecological option, it's not a health option, it's not a life option. But the other option is so available, which is why we don't have to get depressed when Monsanto becomes bigger or Syngenta becomes bigger, because all we have to do is save every seed, and that will shrink them. I think there was a film called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, right? What we have to do is shrink these giants by our actions all over the place. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Vandana Shiva. What an honor to have her with us today. Thank you.